Take your seats. I'm going to say a little bit about Broadway. I'm just having a look where everyone is to see if someone else comes back in. And we're dropping their children off. There's lots. Did you know? I don't know whether it's escaped your notice. Okay, just everyone's attention. Because I know there's a lot going on. But this week, it might be a shock to some of you. But this week, the Olympic Games are starting. Okay? Now, you might look at me and not believe it, but I was an athletics champion. Hey. No, I'm serious. No. I, for a long period of time, was unbeatable at my event. No one beat me. It was not just for speed and strength, it was balance and agility. It was the egg and spoon race. I've got the trophies, and I've got the pictures. I was unbeatable. Now, you look at me and you say, did he train hard for it? Well, not really. Did I practice? Well, not really. Was it God's help? No. Was it experience help? No. It was the key word, blue tack. Okay? Because if you get a little bit of blue tack and put it under the egg on the spoon, you can run as fast as you like. Fantastic. And I've got to be careful. I'm hoping it's not being video, because if it is, I might get stripped of my medals by the Lincolnshire Methodist Circuit of Athletics, my right to take back my medals and my gold awards. But all seriously, we have got something on. And what I want to say about Broadway is about a year ago, almost a year ago, when I agreed to come here, it was the next day that the Broadway offer came onto the table. And I don't know about you, but I like the sprints because it's all about speed and it's like, I've gone, and 10 seconds later it's over. And I think what could have happened is, in Broadway we thought it was a sprint, that the gun would go off and within a short period of time we'd cross the line and all the hours. I think we realised that it's not an egg and spoon race. That yes, we can go quickly, we try and balance, but things might go wrong. It's not an egg and spoon race. Some people might think it's more like a marathon, and it's been a year, so yes, there's an endurance to it. But I think we've got to recognise that it's also a bit like a steeplechase. Do you know what a steeplechase is? It's not where you chase church spires, it's where you go over lots of obstacles. And you see it, there's big hurdles, and there's a big water thing on each lap. And they do about 8 laps or 10 laps or whatever to do, I think it's 3,000 or 5,000 metres, which is a long way. And the reason I say that is because every time we go around a corner, every time we pick up speed, there's another hurdle, another obstacle. And although it's frustrating and it's annoying, what I'm feeling God is saying, and it's been confirmed by people that are speaking into this, is that any long distance race needs patience and strategy. Okay? And I think if we're going to take something massive and see a gold medal, a trophy at the end of this, we've got to think patience, we've got to think strategy at all times. And so bear with us. I'd like it to be a sprint, I'd like the gun to go off and see the tape and go straight through, but it's becoming a battle. Now the thing is about this, let's be really, really honest this morning. Does the devil want us to have a Broadway? No. Is the devil English? I say that. Is the devil going to say, oh, Broadway, after you? Is he going to try and trip us up? Is he going to try and make us our lives a misery? Is he going to get every dirty trick in the book to try and stop us? Yeah, we know the enemy of our souls, don't we? What is it? To destroy, to kill, and to steal, right in that order. And again, in this society that we're living in, if someone or something can steal or destroy or kill the church or its reputation, that's what they want to do. And so even though, as runners, you look at me as being athletic, you look at Tom being ultra-athletic, you look at Amon as maybe we're able to catch us up at some moment in time. Probably Amon's the quickest of all three of us, but we're going to negotiate these hurdles, we're going to win the race, we're in it for the long term. As Tom said last week, it's easier to run the other way sometimes, but we haven't and we're not going to. And we've got to hang in there, get the patience and the strategy of God until we win the prize that He has for us. So, yeah, We keep going. We might hit the hurdle or two, but we're going to catch up. And that's what I'm going to preach on today. I'm going to preach about the race. It's the Olympics. Come on. How many people love sport like I do? Come on. Come on. I saw Amon running yesterday on the beach. Come on. I'll be honest. He can get a bit of a turn of speed when he wants to. He's the church treasurer, and I think somebody dropped some coins. Sorry, that's not true. But he can move, that's the truth. He can move. And I only move when roused, that's the thing. I only move when... It's like the steam engine. I can get going up to a high speed, but then trying to stop's another matter. Because when you get that sort of weight moving in one direction. But I want to talk, the Bible, the New Testament, uses 3 Greek words for race. And I'm going to look at one in particular, but the 3, just if you're taking notes and want it as a quiz question. First one's in 2 Timothy 4, verse 7. And the Apostle Paul talks about fighting the fight. Now, I spilled water all down myself. Actually, that's quite cool. I might just splash myself. No. But talks about fighting the fight. I know some of you had that read at their wedding. Fight the good fight. Probably not the best use of scripture. But run the race. And that word for race there is about a journey, a course. You know, and he was talking about Paul, because I reckon 2 Timothy was the last book that Paul wrote before he was executed. So it's almost like Paul, I love Paul because he starts off like, "I, Paul, the apostle, the man of God." That's how he starts his letters. But towards the end, he starts by saying, "I'm Paul, I'm a slave. I'm just a servant to the gospel." And he comes here and says, "I've run the race. I've kept the faith. I've finished my course." There is a challenge for us that God has mapped out a course for us in our lives that we need to complete. Full of twists and turns. The second mention of racing is in 1 Corinthians 9:24. And it says, "Run the race in such a way that you win the prize." Again, I could preach on this on its own. And the Greek word stadium means the distance. Go the distance. Do you know, in our day and age, we are not in a go the distance culture. If our marriage isn't working, not always as clear cut as that, but sometimes, very sadly, they don't go the distance. Careers don't go the distance. People who thought they'd had a job for life get finished. Church life, relationships don't go the distance. We can walk, you know, and there's lots of reasons for this. But in general, we're not in a go the distance thing. When you hear about somebody, this is why we celebrate them in the house. When someone says we've been married 60 years, you don't hear of that very often. So we celebrate it. We celebrate people who go the distance. And that's why I like celebrating George. And I'll probably talk a bit more about him this morning. Because he's going the distance. And he's still in the race, still going the distance. But it's a challenge to us. Because in our culture today, it's, well, if it's not going well, give up. And God calls us to go the distance. And the third time, and this is what I want to focus on today, is in Hebrews chapter 12. Simon read it as part of what he did a couple of weeks ago. But Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 to 3 says this. Therefore, I love the word therefore, because you'll have heard the saying, every therefore is there for something. So this therefore is there for a reason today. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the cross set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinful men, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. What a great thing. And the Greek word there is agon, contest. The race is a contest. Now, I just want to paint a picture for you. The early Olympic Games, I'm talking pre-1896, when it was originally in Greece, near Mount Olympus. In fact, just going off on a tangent, I heard a story this week about one of the torch runners. I don't know if you heard it on the radio, on the national press, but she ran one of the legs of the torch, and she thought it'd be a good idea to celebrate this unique feat, to get a tattoo of the Olympic rings, the word Olympics 2012 on her arm, so forever she would remember what she did that day. The only problem was, the guy who did the tattoo couldn't spell the word Olympics. So she's got the word Olympics on her arm, and 2012 forevermore. Yeah, if you're going to get it done, get somebody who can spell Olympics first. That's a good idea. Olympics. The guy on the radio was really having fun at that. But again, early Olympics. And I don't want to be rude this morning, but what happened was the runners in those days realised that they could run quicker without clothes. Alright? So, how can I put this? Joe, help me. They ran in the nip. In the nude. They ran. Now, what happened was, because there was a stadium when they started, and there was a stadium that they ran into at the finish, all these men lined up on the starting line in the nod was not, I hope this is translated into other languages, because I can't think of any other expressions to use, but they're lined up. It's not very nice. And in fact, the crowd, it wasn't good. So what cultural commentators have said was actually what they did was they wore almost like ceremonial clothes at the beginning of the race to cover themselves up in front of the crowd. But here is what happened, you see, because they say go, they do a lap round with their togas or whatever on, and they run out of the stadium into the course, and of course, when the course is there, there's not many people around. So hey, they don't need these clothes anymore. So what happened was there'd be a and they'd throw clothes off themselves as they ran the race, so therefore leave them in the nude, so they could run faster. Okay? Now, I think, my personal thing, it's just my conjecture today, is that this is what Paul had in mind when he wrote this. He was saying, hey, can you imagine the stadium full of people? They are a cloud of witnesses cheering us on for our race of life. These people, but it wasn't any of the witnesses, actually the Greek word is the word martus, which again is not far from another word which is martyrs. These people were guys that had run the race, but actually had died in the race, died for the race, martyred, given their life for Christ. These witnesses are not just any old Tom, Dick and Harry saying, come on! These are people who died for what we're running for. Now we need to get this properly asserted in our mind, the Greek word contest for this race. Do we treat it as a contest? Do we treat it seriously? I mean, when the people who want to cheer us on have actually given their life for this thing, physically or spiritually, and they are now cheering us on, when we come with an attitude that says, you know what, I don't feel like running today. People who've given their life for the goal that we're pursuing, they're the ones that are cheering us on. And then he writes, let us throw off everything that hinders us. So this picture of the runners coming out of the stadium, trying to get faster, running for that purpose, running for that prize, and they'd do anything to get it, they'd actually throw their clothes off. And he's saying, church, listen, if you're running seriously, when you get out of that stadium, whatever is holding you back, throw it off. Get rid of it so that you can run. And what happened was, a lot of the people who left the stadium would actually get lost because they wouldn't know where they're going. So what happened was the friends and family of the runners would often stand on the course to shout them on their way. Say, it's this way, come on! Marking out the path. We need people like that in our lives, helping us, guiding us. People who've done the course before us, helping us and showing us the way to go and cheering us on. And I mentioned it last week. When we start the race and the crowd is there cheering us on, and we walk up to the starting line and people saying, come on, you can do it. Feels good, doesn't it? And when we run into that stadium for the last time and the whole crowd are on their feet, cheering us on for the finish, that feels good. The problem with the marathon is that 25 miles in between. When you're on your own, when you're running in dark, rainy conditions, that's when you give up. Not when you're in the stadium going through the line, not when you started, but that bit in the middle. Therefore, since we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that easily hinders us. The sin that entangles us. I don't know, there was something in the Tour de France where one of the riders got caught up in a flag that was being waved. His bike got caught up and he crashed. Because things can easily